The views and opinions expressed in the following program are those of the hosts and guests, and not necessarily those of the staff and management of WWDB-TV. Hot topics, food, fun, entertainment, and serious business. Live Las Vegas with Rikki Cheese.
We're so glad you joined us here for Live Las Vegas with Rikki Cheese. One of my very favorite people in the world is back in town. She's back for summer. We're talking to Leslie Rogers. See, she makes me break out into song.
How old are we?
I mean, right, you know? Leslie Rogers, who is the donor and PR director for the Salvation Army, and why I begged her to be on the show. So I'm driving around town, which I always do, of course. Dog's in the car. And I hear you on the radio, and you're doing a follow-up to this big bottled water drive. Now, it's been about a month now.
Actually, no, we just started last week.
You just started yours, but the one before
that was somebody else's.
This was somebody else's. This is on KSOS. It's Christian Contemporary Radio Station, 90.5 on your FM dial. You've got to tune in. And one of the things that's so great about this station is it's a faith-based station, but also their reach in this community is just unreal. People just came out of the woodwork for the bottled water drive. That was for the Las Vegas Rescue Mission. This is the new one now for the Salvation Army. And listening to you guys on the radio and listening to the people who were donating, my heart every single day was so touched that people were just, bringing pallets of water. Some people could only bring just a few bottles, but it didn't really matter.
No.
It was the outpouring of love and support in this community, and you and I have talked over the years. You ask people in Las Vegas to help, and they say, how can we do it?
What can we do?
Yeah.
When do you need it? I was at a networking meeting this morning, and I had lunch with a chiropractor in the group last week. He said, I'm going to bring something. So he brought a check, and he said, how much is a pallet? And I said, it's $143. So he just wrote me a check for $143. So there's another pallet.
Right.
I got a check for $1,000 yesterday from someone else that was not earmarked, and they said, do with it what you need to do. That's 7 pallets of water.
Wow.
So we got 8 pallets of water in 2 days. It's, we'll use 150 before the end of October.
Wow. Now let's talk about the reach of the Salvation Army, because people are used to seeing Salvation Army, and you think about it around Christmas time, but a lot of the majority of your work is done Monday through Friday, Saturday, Sunday in the community. It's not just the stuff that happens around the holidays.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we have so many different programs that people aren't even aware of. So I'm hoping we get to touch on several of those today.
We're gonna talk about the bottled water drive first, and then we're gonna talk about it again, because we want to let everybody know how they can donate.
Absolutely.
Talk about that reach. How much water do you need?
Right. We probably use about 1,000 bottles a day, which is close to a pallet a day. We will go through 150 pallets probably by the end of October, middle of November, before it starts to really cool off again.
Right.
We have anywhere from 250 to 350 people that stop into our, we call it, it's a county cooling station, but it's our day resource center, and it's open every day from 11 to 7. So anyone on the streets that just needs to get out of the heat, get a little air conditioning, watch a little TV, just relax and get out of the elements, they're always welcome there. We like to give everyone at least a bottle of water. We usually give them more than one. We also give a bottle of water with our homeless meals, and with our client meals they can either drink the Kool-Aid out of the cooler or coffee or water.
Right.
So we probably, again, go through maybe 1,000 bottles a day, which is huge. If you think about it. A pallet is 48 cases. Depending on the size of that case, that's just about little over 1,000 bottles. So
I was so struck by just the enormous amount of water that you guys needed for both of your programs.
Right.
And both of your programs are faith-based programs. Both of your programs provide incredible free services. So I just wasn't even thinking about bottled water. I'm thinking about, clothes and food and those types of things, which we're going to talk about too.
Right.
But the bottled water thing, really, everybody could relate to that.
Well, and it's where we live, and it's so crazy hot here. We've been blessed with a wonderful May. But June's
Yes.
a coming, so
Yes,
is summer,
yes.
and it will be 100 and stupid before we know it,
Right.
as I like to call it.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I don't like to
exactly.
name numbers, so I just say 100 and stupid. I figure after about 102,
Right.
it's all ridiculous.
Right.
So, but what we do know, all of us, is that you can survive with very little sleep. You can survive days without food. You cannot survive
water.
in this heat for more than probably 20 hours max, I think, without water, because it's just so hot. We become completely dehydrated so quickly.
Yeah.
So especially for our friends on the street that have nowhere else to go, and they don't just have a water tap they can turn on somewhere to fill up an empty bottle.
Right.
And, you know, we've had people call us and say, well, why are you giving out plastic bottles? You know, you're going to make all this trash. Quite frankly, our homeless friends are quite resourceful. And as
Yes.
many of them as they are, probably several of them are busy gathering up those bottles and taking them to the recycle center, which happens to be almost across the street from
Right.
us. So they're making a little bit of pocket change so they can afford to get a meal somewhere or do something else with that money. They might be able to buy a night inside the hostel instead of just staying on the street, because
Right.
there's not that much free
Right.
sleeping space available in this town, especially as the weather warms up.
Yeah. Now you have your main offices are on Palomino Lane, but you've got satellite campuses that serve the entire community.
We do. Most of our homeless services, in fact, almost all of our homeless services, happen at 35 West Owens. Basically, it's 31 to 45, but 35 is the main building where the dining room is, and we do a free meal there every single day.
Right.
And we coordinate that. It's really interesting. In that corridor of hope, as we call it, the Catholic Charities does breakfast at about 9:30.
Right.
We do lunch at 1:30, and then the mission, the rescue mission, does dinner at 5 o'clock every day.
Yeah.
So someone on the street that's willing to take a little stroll, that quarter mile over to the mission, you can literally have breakfast, lunch, and dinner
Right.
if
Within
you
walking
happen to be
distance.
homeless.
Yes.
So we have a lot of families that we see and individuals that we see all the time. We see fewer early in the month because they've got EBT cards. They can go lots of places and buy things, so they don't necessarily need the free meal. And then later on in the month, we get past the 15th, 18th, 20th of the month,
Getting a little scarce.
it starts to fill up a little bit. We'll see maybe 200 or 300 at the beginning of the month, and as many as 500 or 600 in the hour from 1:30 to 2:30 that we serve daily, 365 days a year.
Another thing I really love about this bottled water drive, it is very easy unless you are driving or you have business in that area of town. If you're living in Anthem or you're living in Centennial Hills or you're living, you know, in Summerlin or you're out there in North Las Vegas, it's kind of easy to forget that we have a very large population here that is food insufficient. You're talking about
Absolutely.
folks running out of food toward the end of the month, who need supplies, who need help, who are not just all homeless. Because I think what happens is people don't mean to, but if you say homeless, they think, oh, they've done something wrong or they're not working hard enough. You can be homeless. You can lose your job and be homeless
Like that, especially if you're living on 1 or 2 minimum wage jobs and you've got 3 or 4 kids. One of those spouses loses a job, they're on the street. They can't pay the rent.
Yeah.
And they can't keep their kids fed. We, of course, have at Family Services, which is around the corner up on Main Street near Owens, is our Family Services and our food pantry there. People can come in. It's essentially every 60 days. In the summer, families with children can come every month because a lot of those children
Are out of school.
but
Yeah.
in school they get breakfast and lunch.
Right.
So we put them back on that 60-day program during the school year, and then they're every 30 days. Elderly are eligible every 30 days to come in and get some food, and it's depending on how you eat, it's, you know, a 3-day, 4-day supply, but it supplements what you might have.
Right.
And we've situated ours so it looks like a grocery store. You need to come and see it.
I've got to see it, yeah.
You can come in and you get a cart and somebody walks you through, and that way the mom or the dad gets to pick out the food they'll eat.
Right.
As opposed to, here's a bag with beans, and if you don't eat beans or rice and you eat pasta and it doesn't have pasta, or it, you know,
It's a waste of food, too.
it
Right.
exactly is a waste of food. Nobody's going to eat it. Nobody's going to enjoy it, and they probably won't give it to someone else. They'll dump it.
Right.
So we'd rather have them come in, shop our shelves, and pick out what they're actually going to use.
That is so exciting.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
it also just provides a little bit of You're important. You matter. Dignity. You
Yes.
get to pick and choose. We're not going
Right.
to tell you what you have to have.
Right.
And I love that.
Yeah.
And the same thing with our homeless feeding, our homeless meal. We call it the community meal. And I don't very often refer to the people on the street as homeless. I prefer to call them just our neighbors in need or our friends on the street or whatever. But for that community meal, if we have a large group of volunteers, I would say 15 to 18 or more that come in to help serve that meal, we will literally serve the meal. We'll have our guests come in and sit at the table, and we bring them their meal instead of having them walk through the serving line.
That's fantastic.
So probably at least a couple of times a month, we will have groups. We have groups from Nellis and from Creech that come in. We have organizations, Deloitte, and lots of other businesses in town that come on a regular basis and serve. And so it's really nice when they have larger groups because we actually get to make it feel a little bit more like a restaurant and less like a cafeteria. And they get to sit down and be waited on, which is a lovely thing.
Let's talk about the evolution of the Salvation Army. Now, it started long time
100 right now. I think it's 153 years.
Yeah.
Yep, 1865 in London, England. And it's a great story. A downtown Methodist church, and one of the preachers there, one of the pastors at the church, was William Booth. And he had a real heart for the people on the street. And he would invite them, stinky, dirty, tired, hungry, into the church because those people need God just the same as the ones that can afford to get all dressed up with their bustles and their fancy carriages and whatever.
Right.
Well, of course, the people with their bustles and their fancy carriages weren't so crazy about having the neighbors from the street come in and go to church.
Sure.
And they would kind of move over to their pew or whatever and make a face probably. I don't know. I wasn't there.
Right.
I could have been. I'm almost old enough, but I wasn't there. But, and what happened, of course, senior pastor said, you can't keep doing that. And he said, excuse me, but in my Bible it says that Jesus came for the sick, not for the well. And these people need God the same as everybody else, the ones that can tithe and the ones that can't. And that's what I'm here to do. Well, of course, that church sort of moved uptown, probably 10 blocks away, but when you're doing it in a horse-drawn carriage or on foot, it seems further.
Sure.
And he stayed in the heart of London and ministered to those people. And what was born out of that was the soup, soap, and salvation that is the original cry of the Salvation Army. People can't hear what you want to tell them about God if they're dirty and hungry and sleepy.
Right.
So let's give them something to eat. Let's let them have a shower. Let's give them a change of clothes, provide a little of that dignity, help them realize that we know that because God created them, they have value.
Right.
And then once they feel a little more human again, then you can talk to them about the gospel and teach them about what Jesus wants for their life and how he wants to help them improve their lives by filling themselves up with a little God.
Right, exactly.
Getting a little Jesus in there. That's right. Amen, amen.
Well, let's check in again with the bottled water drive. How many bottles do you need? And one of the things that came out with that first one, I didn't realize what a big chunk of your budget was being taken up by water.
Well, and we love 3 Square. We work with 3 Square both in our kitchen and in our food pantry. Right. And they're an amazing partner. And they used to have almost an endless supply of water that we could get deeply discounted.
Right.
Theirs has dried up as well.
That's what I've heard.
So now it's up to us to go to big box store and buy a pallet. And it's not, for what it is, it's about $144, $145 to get 48 cases of water on a pallet. So it's not horrific. But when you need 150 of those, it's horrific. So people can donate. I think it's still open. We actually have a text to give, 51555, and you text Water for Hope, and a $10 donation would be made, which will buy 4 or 5 cases of water, depending on where we shop. Put a few of those together, and we've got a pallet.
Yeah.
People can also go to our website, which is Salvation Army, www.salvationarmysouthernevada.org. .org.
I can get all caught up with that and go, how come I can't find the website?
Exactly.
Well,
Duh. It's an org. And then a /Water for Hope. And we have a dedicated page there,
Okay.
and there's a donate now button right on that page, so they can
Nice.
give $10, $20, $25,000. We don't care.
Yeah, yeah.
We'd be excited.
Now, are you able to go out and actually pick up this water, or do people need to deliver it to you?
If it's smaller amounts, they're more than welcome to come to 35 West Owens and drop the water. That's where it's going to be used. If it's pallets and things like that, they can order it, assemble it at some place, and we can find someone to pick it up. If they have the ability, if it's a company that has a truck and can deliver pallets to us, that would be fabulous, because then that means we don't have to spend gas and manpower to do it ourselves. But if we need to do that, we absolutely can.
Right.
And if there are, as I said, financial donations, monetary donations, we then go to the big box and buy what we need, and we make a trip out and pick up pallets.
Right,
Well, we have pallet jack and a big truck. And
So your food pantry is it open do you have to sign up for that?
you sign up, you can come in and sign up, and there are, I should have brought something, but there are items needed.
Right.
We have, birth certificates for everybody in the family, so we know who lives there.
There's a list, and that's on their website.
And
so
that
I
is
saw
on the
you have to
website.
go on ahead of time.
You can go ahead of time. You can also call Family Services. I'll give you that phone number, and that's at 1581 North Main. And Family Services phone number is 702-649
702.
649-8240.
Okay.
And that's where the food pantry is located. We also do, when we have funding available, we do rental and utilities assistance. We get money both from the gas company and Nevada Power or NV Energy for donations or for gifts of utilities assistance to people who are just right on the edge and just can't quite make that bill this they only get that once a year.
Okay.
But it's still a big help.
Yeah. When you need it.
When you need it, it's there.
Right.
And they don't lose their, the electricity isn't cut off or the gas isn't cut off, so they can still provide for their family a cooler, warm place. Yes.
Underlying, of course, the foundation of the Salvation Army, of course, it's a Christian-based organization. So your focus too is you're not excluding anybody, but you're trying to bring them to the Word of God.
Exactly. And in fact, our mission statement says that we are part of the Evangelical Church of Christ. We share the gospel by meeting human needs without discrimination. That's the biggest piece of our mission statement. And so many times we are misunderstood. People think that because we are Christ-centered, there are people we don't deal with. We never ask, when someone comes for help, we never ask who you love, who you live with, where you go to church, what your beliefs are, what your faith base is, or if you even have one. All we want to know is, do you have a need? Do we have the ability to meet that need? Or can we connect you with someone who can if we can't? Because we don't have every program for every need out there. But we coordinate those efforts, again,
Yes.
with the other organizations that we work with in the Corridor of Hope. So
Yeah. That corridor is just so important. And I've seen over the years how I was one of those people who was very critical of moves to cut down on the homeless or to make them move out or whatever. But you guys, because you are so cooperative, you've actually created a community down there of people who help one another. And the horror stories that we used to hear years ago, that's just not happening anymore.
it's not, certainly isn't as bad as it was. There are still issues, but we also have an amazing team called the MORE team. I don't know if you're familiar
No.
with them. Okay, let's see if I can get this right. Multi-agency outreach resource engagement.
Okay.
And they are members of the LVMPD,
Yeah,
the police
that's
department.
right. Okay.
And they have screaming neon yellow t-shirts that say MORE on them. And one is tasked to the Salvation Army, one to Shade Tree, I believe, one to the Rescue Mission. I think that's, or maybe one to help and the Rescue Mission. I don't know, but they go out on our behalf and assist us when we do outreach and talk to our neighbors on the street and encourage them to come up to where the services are.
Right.
And in addition to that, the city of Las Vegas just last week, I don't know if you saw, but they broke ground on what is going to be the courtyard. There's a mini version of it adjacent to the new property, or to the property that will ultimately be the courtyard. But the courtyard area of the, is it Shannon West Center?
Yes.
That is Help, right across on Formaster and the Boulevard. That is the beginnings of what will ultimately be the courtyard, and the courtyard will be covered over completely. So it's shaded in the winter, I mean in the summer, in the winter as well. But it is open air, but it will be shaded. People will be able to bring their belongings into the courtyard and sleep in the courtyard. They'll have mats for them. They will be outside, but they'll be undercover, so they'll be out of the elements. And that will be, we will each, all of those resources available in the area will have representatives on certain days of the week right there. And it may be every day that we have caseworkers down there, I'm not sure.
Keeping an eye out.
But no, well, we will have people, we will be resources. It's a come together and get resources. So find the help you need. If you need vocational training, it would be us, or it may be Catholic Charities. If you're looking for rehab facilities, it might be us or the mission. You know, it just depends on what it is. If there are women on the street with children, they all go to Shade Tree. But we will all, through this one location, we're hoping that even though the people on the street are often reluctant to go into a certain facility, they may not want to go into Catholic Charities or come to Salvation Army because they think there are rules. Because this is sort of an open air place to congregate, we're hoping that they will come there and realize that we are all there to help and to turn their lives around if they're ready and willing to do the work to make that happen.
I went over to Catholic Charities a while back, and I did a story on one of the chefs there. And one of the things that I didn't realize, and here again, this is why it's so important, if you guys are doing these bottled water drives, take the time, if you can, to go down to these facilities, because it will be quite an eye-opener. Something so simple. They have created a part of their cafeteria where people can bring their shopping carts in.
Right.
Because they were having a hard time getting the homeless folks, people on our neighbors on the streets, to come in because they didn't want to leave their stuff outside. And I thought, well, you know, that totally makes sense, because that's your whole world. You let your clothes, your supplies, whatever you have, you're not going to leave that out there to get it, you know, taken away. And they said their attendance at the meals went up dramatically because people could, you know, like, and just like backpacks. When you do the backpack drives, there are kids who literally, that's all they have.
Right.
Their clothes are in their backpacks, their shoes, their, you know, what little food they may have. They can't just leave their backpacks. That's everything they've got.
Right. We have the same thing. When you come into our facility for lunch in the afternoon, we have a whole area set aside. Now, they don't bring their carts in, they leave the carts outside, but they bring the backpack right inside. We have shelves and storage for them for the time that they're in for the meal. We also have a separate little dining room with round tables for families that come in.
Right.
Because we do get moms and or dads or both with kids that just happen to have been one paycheck away, and that paycheck went away.
Right, exactly.
And so they come in and they eat with us. And we like to be able to have a separate place where they can actually face each other, sit and have a meal as a family.
Yeah, as opposed to sitting on those long benches
yeah.
and not even able to make eye contact.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we love that.
One of the programs, too, that's very, very important that you guys offer, you offer spiritual services. We talked a little bit about that. But you also offer an addiction recovery program that is critical.
Our adult recovery or adult rehabilitation center is amazing. It is a 6-month to 12-month program, live-in program. They get counseling, 12-step groups, chapel twice a week, Wednesday nights and Sunday morning. They have group therapy. They have individual counseling and therapy. They go to outside NA or AA meetings, whatever they need. They work in our warehouse or on our trucks picking up donations, because the one thing that has happened, all of the Salvation Army thrift stores support that program. Those people don't pay a penny for 6 to 12 months of rehabilitation services, and it's very, very, very high quality. We have probably, with the men, we have many more men than we have women. We have room for about 80 I'm trying to think here, 82 men, I think, and 27 maybe women. And we have about a 20% success rate with the men, which is outrageous.
Right.
In addiction, if you can get above 10%, it's a great big darn deal to make that happen, to have that kind of success and not have everybody revert.
Right.
So we have about 20% with the men and maybe 12 to 15% with the women, depending. But that's a huge thing.
Yeah, yeah.
And so we have room for about 110 or 12 at any given time. And they all work. They work in the warehouse, sorting the things that come in, or as I said, they go out on the trucks with one of our regular drivers as the second and help pick up donations. And we take gently used furniture. We take appliances. We take household items and clothing, of course, and bric-a-brac and artwork and cars and trucks and vans and boats and jet skis and whatever else somebody might have that they no longer want, that we can sell to support the people that are in the program. Because
the facility that's closest to my house, I saw this thing on it was online somewhere. This woman out of Japan, she's got this whole YouTube thing going where she's telling people how to downsize. Look around your house. Do you really need this stuff? And so when I saw her, it was one of those late nights going and thinking, and I looked around my house, I thought, I've got a lot of stuff. And I've got a lot, because I think I've told a lot of you guys this before. Like some women are addicted to shoes, I'm addicted to chairs. I've got this thing for chairs. I just love chairs.
Rikki,
and
you only have one little button. You can only put it in so many places at one time.
I know this, but I just love, to me, they're like art. And especially if I can rehab the chair and reupholster it or do something with it. And I looked around and so it's me and two Akitas. So I thought, now, first of all these chairs are hair catchers. So really, why do I have these chairs? I'm spending all this time cleaning Akita hair off of these chairs. I love these chairs, but why do I have all these chairs? So that's how I got started. And the poor guys at the shop, they were just sort of like, lady, what do you have like a furniture shop or something? It's like, no, these are just my chairs. So the chairs were the first things to go. Then I started looking at, like you said, the bric-a-brac. Really, how many vases can one woman have? I mean, come on, it's like, so the vases started going, and then some of the cookware started going, and I think there was like a 1 month period of time where I was there every single weekend just unloading stuff. But the thing about it was when I would go in, I would see other things. So now my rule is, I cannot buy anything from the Salvation Army unless I've donated at least 3 to 5 things. So that's my cutoff, and right now, I'm ahead of the game. I can go in and buy something now because I've actually donated like a whole bunch of stuff this weekend. But I think people don't realize how valuable that is for your organization.
Oh, it's amazing, because that is what makes that whole rehab program happen.
Right.
And it's an incredible program. I have great stories that come out of there. One young man went into the rehab program. I'm trying to get I'm thinking it's the end of 16, maybe earlier, maybe fall of 16. And Stephen went in. He had been a drug user for over 20 years. Wow. He had been arrested for the umpteenth time, and the judge said, I should throw you in prison for 4 or 5 years. I'm going to give you one more shot. I'm going to send you to the Salvation Army. If you leave there before you're done, you will go to prison, and you will stay there for, I haven't decided how long yet. He came in. And this time, he was ready. The old sick and tired of being sick and tired.
Right.
And it stuck. And he worked the program really well. And when he finished, he stayed because he wasn't yet ready. He wanted to go into our culinary program on the Owens campus, which is part of vocational. And we didn't have a space for him. When he finished, it was sort of already into that semester. So he waited and stayed for aftercare. You can stay after your 6 months. You can stay on and do what they call the 4th step, and you basically work maybe in the office or work on the front desk, greeting people as they come in, taking care of others, and sort of giving back. And when it was his turn, he moved over to the Owens campus and went into the culinary program and just nailed it. He just loved it. He graduated last November. And he is now working at T-Mobile Arena.
Wow.
He lives in our Lead Apartments on the Owens campus, and we have little studio apartments, 68 of them, I believe, and he's in one of those. They pay $450 a month for rent. He initially was riding the bus 2 hours each way to go to work. He was able to save up within a month or so. He was able to save up and buy himself a little red scooter.
Oh, wow.
So now he goes back and forth to work on his scooter. He adores his job. He stays connected through case management at vocational right on the same campus. So he sees his case manager probably twice a month to just check in, and if he's got questions or he needs help with something, they help with budgeting. His apartment is much cleaner than my house. And when I saw his closet, I kind of looked at him. He said, yeah, I'm a little anal about my clothing. I said, okay, so all of the white jackets and checked pants are here, just perfect. And then all of his play clothes or his non-work clothes, they're like color coordinated. And I thought, you need to come to my house and fix my closet because it doesn't look anything like this. I mean, and of course it was so cute. His one line was, I'm so appreciative of both the rehab that I went through and being in vocational and living in the dorm across the way. But I'm so excited to have my own bathroom that I'm not sharing with 70 other men.
The little things, right?
Yes,
are
exactly.
big things.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, yeah.
And to have his own kitchen and be able to cook for himself. He experiments when he's not working with recipes and things. He's fabulous.
How did you start to work for the Salvation Army? What brought you to this organization?
Great story. My husband and I moved here from Arizona in 1993 to plant a church. My husband, Ron, was a pastor. And he was part of the Church of the Nazarene. They brought him here to plant a church, and we were creating a church for up and outers, as we used to call them, as opposed to down and outers. Those people out in Summerlin that have so much stuff they don't think they need God until they stop to breathe, and then they realize that they're really not very happy, and just because they have a lot of things, they don't really have anything that fills them up. And that's what all the other things are for, is to try and fill them up. And
up and outers.
Up and outers is what we used to call them. We were recovering yuppies ourselves, so we figured we could relate. So that little church, actually, it was really interesting. It became an emotional trauma center almost.
Really?
Yes. And people would come to us just broken. They either had a bad marriage, bad family relationships, bad childhood, bad relationships with other churches where things were just sort of pounded into them. And Ronnie was so amazing at just sharing the love of Jesus. And you met him, and you know, I mean, it just kind of oozed out of him. It really did. And so people would get well, they'd get healthy, they'd get whole, they'd fall in love with God, and then he would say, oh, you've got kids, you should go to that church over there, they have a great children's program. Oh, you've got teenagers, that church over there has an amazing youth oh, you're single, there's a great singles program. And finally one day he looks at me, he says, Leslie, this church is not growing. I said, honey, there's a really basic reason for that. I said, somebody gets well and falls in love with God, and then you send him down the street. I don't do that. And then I just started naming families, and he went, I do that. I said, yeah, if we kept them here and asked them to grow a children's program or a teen program or a singles program, we'd be growing, but we don't do that. We do it a different way.
You're sharing.
So we're sharing the wealth. That's right. So, but at about the same time he figured that out, Salvation Army came calling and said they needed, a friend of ours connected us with the Salvation Army and said they need a part-time chaplain on their homeless campus. And Ronnie looked at me and he said, I don't think I'm equipped to do that, but I'll go talk to him. So he went and met with the gentleman who then ran our homeless campus, was our social services director, and they just clicked. And Ronnie said, you know, I'm going to give this a try. So we continued to have our little church, and he started to work 20 hours a week at Salvation Army. Within 2 months, they said, will you go full-time in the fall? And that was 1997.
Wow.
And he was on that campus as chaplain for homeless, chronically mentally ill, and at the rehab center. He would go back and forth between the two campuses for many years. Of the 18 years that we were there, he was traveling back and forth for about 10 of those and covering both campuses. But he was so gifted at what he did. He could walk through our day center where people were just hanging out to get out of the heat, and he could walk up to someone and put his hand on their shoulder and look at them and ask them how they were that day. And for that moment in time, that person knew the only person Ronnie cared about was them. They were the only one that mattered to him, and because of that, they were the only one that mattered to God. And he was always telling them how much they mattered to God. And so I volunteered with him for those nearly 19 years.
Just kind of hanging out, you know, just supporting him.
3 or 4 days a week I was on that campus. We did church service. I always went over to the rehab for their service. You're the only person
I've actually ever covered for much of my career. I mean,
right.
We go way back.
Right.
Yeah.
So I volunteered with them. And they really didn't. Charlie Desiderio, you remember Charlie?
Yes.
So that's really who I replaced. When Charlie passed was when I got my job. But I did a lot of volunteer work for them in the meantime. I had businesses of my own, but I was on that campus 3 or 4 days a week. I was mom or Mrs. Chappie or First Lady, depending on who was calling me out.
Sure, right?
You can relate to that.
Yeah.
So my wonderful black kids on the campus called me First Lady, and other ones called me Mrs. Chappie because they called him Chappie, or Revron, and they'd call me Mrs. Rev. It didn't matter what they called me as long as they called me. I didn't care. And the best part of all of that is a couple of weeks ago when I was down at the courtyard, if you recall, Ben Carson was in town, Dr. Ben Carson.
Yeah.
And
he got to meet with, I thought Arnie Stock was just going to come unglued because he has been trying to get the Trump administration attention to help veterans for the longest time. So Carson's visit was a big deal.
Well, we went down there because Major Randy is part of that homeless coalition. He's a vice chair of that homeless coalition. So we went down there, and I just went with because I wanted to actually see what was going on with the courtyard.
Right.
And we were walking we parked at Family Services because we did not know how many people were coming and how much parking was available. And it's just a block down Four-Master to go there. So we parked and we started walking. And as we're approaching the little courtyard, I hear, "Oh my gosh, Leslie, is that you?" And one of my little kids came running up and hugged me, and he said, "We heard about Chaplain. We're so sorry. Are you okay?" I said, "Yeah, and I'm back." And they, "Oh, you're back. Oh, that's so wonderful. We're so excited." And of course,
honestly, you would have thought, the Queen was showing up when the word went out on social media that Leslie was back in town. I know I was one of the first people going, "Oh, yay!"
Oh my gosh. And what was so funny, one of our mutual friends, little Marie from Channel 3, she put on there when she saw the pod drop at my house in Arizona that was picking up all my stuff. She put a little thing on there. "So the rumor is true." And I looked at my girlfriend that was helping me pack, and I said, "Oh my gosh, I'm a rumor." I've never been a rumor before.
To catch you up, after forever, she just ups and announces that she and her husband are going to move to Arizona to be closer to the kids. Well, there was a big hue and cry. It was like, the Salvation Army is never going to be the same. This is not going to work. How dare you guys leave? So how long were you gone? You were only gone like 3 years, you said?
I was gone 3 years.
And now she popped back. But the thing is, their aura is so big, a lot of people didn't know that they'd actually left town. So if you weren't on social media, you didn't know that Leslie Windsor was like, "Leslie's back? Where did she go?"
I saw a couple of our friends at Channel 8 the other day, and I walked in, and Kirsten, because we were on with her, she said, "You are," and then Nate came out, and he looked at me and he said, "Where have you been?" And I said, "Arizona." He said, "No, you weren't. Where were you?" I said, "No, 3 years, Arizona." He said, "Oh my gosh." So it's either they thought I had died and gone away, and no, just Ronnie.
I just think that your work is so important, and you've been such a integral part of this community, you and your husband for so long, that people just not take you for granted, but it's just they just assume, of course, you're everywhere because you are. I mean, the Salvation Army is a pretty big organization.
We are a pretty big organization, and I am so excited to be back. I feel like I've come home.
Yeah.
I spent a couple of years, I have to admit, in a really kind of dark place.
Sure.
Just trying to recover after he
big
passed.
Loss.
Yeah, it was horrible. But we were so gifted. This is one thing I really want to share. Ronnie had cancer. He was sick for 16 months. But because of who he is and what he knows about who God is, He was never even sick until about the last 2 weeks.
Really?
He would, the first 8 months, he would go get chemo, go to In-N-Out, get a double burger and a chocolate malt, and go to Salvation Army and work.
Oh, wow.
Until we
Wow.
finally moved away,
Uh-huh.
when he started to get a little tired.
Yeah.
But when we were in Arizona together, and I wasn't working, so we were sort of retired, we would go to lunch, we'd go walk around the mall, we'd go to movies, we went out. We did a 2-week cruise 2 months before he passed.
Wow.
So we were just gifted. God was
Yeah.
really,
Big blessing.
really, really good to him.
Yeah.
And he shared it the whole time we were down there, and while he was here before we left, on Facebook, talking about the adventure continue, his hashtag, the adventure continues. And he talked about just how you live with this and how God holds you up through everything. And I kind of had a little bit of an issue with God holding me up, because
Right.
I don't know where I would have been if I didn't have. I don't know how people who lose family or loved ones or close friends or even sometimes pets, because we become so attached. You to your Akitas. When my doodle goes, I'm done.
Yeah.
But I'm not done, but I will feel done for a period. I don't know how you do that without God. Quite frankly, I just don't know.
It's just not possible.
I think not.
It's just not possible in my experience. It's just, you've got to have some belief that there's a reason why we're all here on this earth, to help each other, and then to share with each other and to support each other and to look at it. When my mother, she had lung cancer, and there was a point where, my siblings, don't get mad at me because you know this is true. Mama was a drama queen, and she thought that after she got diagnosed, she was going to be like a Fellini opera. Oh, I'm dying. And I was so mad at God for a little while. I mean, just mad. It's like, how dare you try to take my mother? And then one day I was going to get her meds, and this guy came around the corner. I was at 7-Eleven, and honestly, that could have been my last day on this earth. And then I remember just pulling off to the side, and I started laughing. I said, well, this is not promised to any of us. So I went home and said, you know what, Mom? You're living with cancer. You're not dying of cancer. Let's go shopping. I don't want to go. Yes, we're going shopping. Then we're going out to dinner. We're going to live our lives. You could die in a heartbeat. Anything can happen to anybody. And it's terrible. There's nothing. One of the really wonderful things she taught me very early on was not to tell somebody some of the crazy things that people say. She said, just say, I'm sorry for your loss. Don't say, I know how you feel. No, you don't. You have no idea how that person feels. So let them know that you care. And then don't share the scary stories.
No.
I hate the scary stories. It's like, well, and then when my person had this and my no. Stop it. Stop talking.
Yeah. When the one thing I remember so vividly when we were diagnosed was, instead of why me, he looked at me and he said, well, why not me? Who am I not to have to deal with what everybody else in the world has to deal with in some way or another at some time or another? He said, I'm no better than anybody.
Right.
And that attitude just prevailed, and we were blessed. It was wonderful. But now I'm doubly blessed.
Yeah. Well, I see that, and again, that's the bedrock of your program and the rescue mission. That spirituality, that's got to be the foundation. That's what helps people, like the story that you just told of the young man who turned his life around. That basis, that foundation is what makes everything else possible. And I just want to give a shout out to SOS Radio, because I just found them recently.
Oh, did you?
Yes, I haven't. I
love them.
I was like, tuning, scanning. I thought, I want to listen to them. So when that outreach came and then you guys followed up, I said, this is just the greatest community. This is just an amazing community. All you have to do is ask, and people will come out and do whatever they can.
They're amazing.
Yeah.
They're absolutely amazing. And I said that to Scott. I said, our community it's overwhelming. I mean, they asked for 35,000 bottles for the mission, and they got 71,000 bottles for the mission.
Yeah.
So we haven't even really started with them yet. We just kind of did a little, because it was Salvation Army week last week. That's why Scott had me on. But
that's where I heard. I was like, "Ooh, Salvation Army! She's gonna have to be on the show to talk about this."
So exciting!
What we can do to help to get the word out, because once the media really got behind it, and I mean, but the radio station was the one. I mean, they were hitting that all day long.
Yeah, they were amazing, and they still have little trailers
people
talking
are
about
still,
it. Yeah, it's great. It's just amazing. So I think we're going to actually do a push with them in a few weeks, which is wonderful. But we'll be doing this Water for Hope through the summer. We'll probably just continue it.
Yeah.
Because it's just an ongoing need. It's just more dire in the summer. Right. And we literally are down to about 5 pallets on the campus right now.
And you say you go through one a day?
About one 3/4 of one a day, probably.
Wow.
So, but I just got gifts for about 8 more, so that'll give us another 10 days to 2 weeks, which will be great. So. Okay. Yeah, we just have to keep doing little dribbles at a time, but somebody is gonna come up and say, you know what, we can help with more than that.
Right.
And that will happen. I think,
right.
One of the casino organizations or somebody who has water out the wazoo in their warehouse will say, hey, we've got some.
Yeah, yeah.
And we'll make that happen. We've got the monorail organization, the Las Vegas Monorail, they're doing a drive for us through the middle of June, which they've just started, which is great. So all of their team members are collecting water, which is wonderful. They've done that for us before. So there are a lot of community groups that just join in. So we're blessed.
And that's the cool thing about some of the big organizations, the big casinos, the big businesses, not just casinos, because a lot of you guys know that I'm just obsessed with Veterans Village and all of these big not utility companies, but like electricians and all of these suppliers who bring out their workers who would normally be doing volunteering work anyway. So they bring them out, and they're like these legions of these armies that show up, and it's just like whoosh, and you get all this stuff done. So that's another big thing that happens in this community, where these organizations, these businesses already have, like you said, teams set up. Like Wells Fargo was another one.
Wells Fargo's amazing.
Oh,
we
gosh.
get a lot of help from them. Deloitte, Wyndham Resorts.
Yes.
They come to us probably a couple of times a month. And they'll go and work in the food pantry doing sorting and setting up and doing all of that in the morning. And then they'll come and serve our homeless meal at lunchtime. So, we're really blessed. And we have we have veteran services programs.
Let's talk about that too, because there's a big need. Even though we've got NELS, we've got CREECH, we've got all of these organizations, a lot of veterans don't know the programs that are available to them. It's almost like you've got the VA, but the community organizations are all doing different things.
U.S. Vets has programs,
right.
Veterans Village, as you mentioned. Our Salvation Army Veteran Services Program is grant funded, a lot of it coming directly from federal money. Our program is so strong, we actually have a VA case manager embedded in our programming at 35 West Owens.
Wow.
So we have our own dedicated VA paid employee on our campus working with our case managers.
That's fantastic.
We have 72 beds right now for the homeless vets that are in our programming. And what they're getting is case management, meds management. Are you getting your full benefits that you're entitled to?
Right.
Let's look into that and make sure you're getting your benefits.
Right.
We have one gentleman there, and I can talk about him because we just did our big benefit luncheon, and he was one of the stories we told. And Bob was severely depressed. As he says, I turned off my phone, I turned off my lights, I turned off my computer and my TV, and I was just sitting in the dark waiting to die. And some friends reached out and found him, basically, and sort of dragged him to the VA hospital. And I think he was on a 72-hour watch.
Right.
And from there, he came to our program. And he is 9 or 10 months in. He's been running our clothes closet, which gives him something to do every day.
Sure.
He gets to help all those people, all those vets come in and get dressed if they've got job interviews or someplace to go and they don't have the right clothes. Helps with that. And he is excited to be moving on. His meds are regulated, and he's just in great shape. And he's a completely different person than he was many months ago when he came in. So there's just so many wonderful stories. I mean, everybody hears about how difficult things are, but there are so many successes, and we're so blessed to have been a part of so many of them, or to just be witness to so many of them.
Right.
It's just amazing.
Yeah. Well, again, if you want to get involved, they're always looking for volunteers. If you've got too many chairs, they're always willing to take them. I'm keeping the dogs, but I got away with the chairs, all the bric-a-brac, and mirrors.
Oh.
There's 2 mirrors here that I actually donated here because I get crazy with mirrors. I like to go to, here again, I'll go to the Salvation Army. Don't go to a store and buy those expensive mirrors. Go to the Salvation Army, get yourself one for $15, go to a craft store and paint it. It'll be beautiful, and then you can donate it back to them when you have to clean your house out.
I do a lot of the same, I must admit. And if you have enough, call 1-800-SA-TRUCK, and they'll come and pick it all up, which is fabulous.
Okay, so let's go by the phone number again for family services.
Family services, which is food pantry, rental assistance, utilities assistance, several other things happen on that at that location. That number is 702-649-8240, and located at 1581 North Main Street. But I suggest call ahead so you can find out exactly what you need if you're coming in for a specific service.
Right.
Our
and
homeless,
that whole list is there on their website.
It is on the website, absolutely. And then our homeless campus is our homeless services, which is everything from vet services, vocational program, our culinary vocational program, the shelters. We have hostels, which are paid shelters, but a lot of these people have SSI or SSDI where they can afford to pay $15 a night for a good, warm, safe place and a clean shower and a little cup of coffee in the morning or something.
Right.
So all of that happens at 35 West Owens. Our admin office, if someone wants to just call and make a donation, is 702-870-4430. Website, www.salvationarmysouthernnevada.org. And if you want to make a donation directly for water, you can do /Water for Hope. We still have, I believe, that text to give.
Right.
51555, and you just simply text, all spelled out, Water for Hope to 51555, and that'll be a $10 gift, which will buy 3 or 4 or 5 cases of water, which is terrific.
Fantastic. Well, Leslie, thank you for being on the show, and thank you for coming back to town.
Thank you,
Rikki. The
Rikki.
sun is just shining just a little bit brighter because Leslie Rogers has returned to us and the Salvation Army. We're so glad you joined us here on Live Las Vegas with Rikki Cheese. Make sure you tune in to SOS Radio. It's 90.5 FM. You will find out about so many great community organizations, faith-based here in town, and find out ways that you can help. What you can donate, what you can volunteer for. It's just really, and the music is really good.
It's fabulous.
It really is, and it's commercial free. That's the best part. Forget Sirius. We will see you next week right here on Live Las Vegas with Rikki Cheese.